Hello my dear friends and colleagues, Martin here again. Cityscapes. Let's start with my beginning of drawing these big cityscapes, so that I can show you the steps between something like this here, yeah, chaotic and not very confident lines and so on. So this was in 2020, so in the year of the pandemic. And then in the years, I would say 22, I started with something like this. So this, I call them the cityscapes. And there are some buildings from references, some from fantasy, and the composition with some thoughts behind it. So here the dark towers with, let's say, financial or political forces, and here also a combination of real buildings from real life, and then these domes and towers from imagination, and then combination with a bridge, with a foreground, trying some color concepts, and also here a night scene, and so on. And of course, this was not done from overnight. The starting point wasn't the sketchbooks. The starting point in 2020 have been such drawings with a technical pen, so it was a rotring, isograph or a lithograph, and there I did these drawings only in black and white with diluted ink for shadings, and one color, in this case some light poles, in this case orange, because I think it was autumn, and so, and a good contrast. And as you see here, this was very simple with some squares, balconies, and these windows were only black squares, also black small squares. Then I discovered these wires, these cables here, and I did many of these. I think about 1 or 2 years I was drawing these black dark towers. 2020, yes. Then I tried some compositions with a little bit of perspective, so that you can imagine the height of these towers. Also composition where only 2 small objects surrounded with white, with the paper white. And then I go a step further to have so massive differences between these blocks, these floors, as well with a terrace here, and what we have here. Oh, this was on different kind of papers I tested. And then here it goes a little bit more in detail with the buildings, but with also these very easy towers. Then first in 2021, so the framing, because you see only the upper side of the upper part of these towers, and one huge tower here, so I just want to see how this works. Then with the sparkles, and so going into one extreme direction. And then I experimented with colors with these poles here, so buildings under construction. And my wife loved these ships, these boats, where they are very symbolic for hope and for going for a journey or something like that, but these are in Trockendocks. So these were the thoughts behind this. and endless of these in 2021. And really sometimes detailed, sometimes very loose, very expressive. So I don't want to bore, that's not too boring for you. And always going from one extreme to the other. So here these small, slim towers with another houses here on these towers so that you can imagine the height. And then more these blends in autumn. There's one green one here. So these kind of drawings, I think, were the first step into this architectural fantasy drawings, or drawings by imagination or memory parts of this. And then I realized it's not always the best idea to draw something and have in mind to do a great artwork, a picture on a large scale paper, and then to frame it and put it on the wall, or to sell it or something like this. And then I started with the sketchbooks, and these were my first sketchbooks. And so in no particular order, oh yes, here. Still these things I wanted to test out, some extreme things. And so I could do anything here, because this is a sketchbook. And yeah, in 2022 I also just wanted to combine here these windmills with some boards, wooden boards, and this all a little bit crazy, putting this together. Also here more these mechanical parts, combination with the lamp. And here is a desk as big as a house. So more on the fantasy side. This was in January 2022. And then more experiments like you saw here. What else we have here? Yeah, and then I checked out these water-soluble ink. So when the ink lines are floating into the color, the watercolor, the paint, and when here it's much clearer when you use waterproof ink. What I also wanted to learn, or to achieve, is to know the difference between black and white without ink lines, with ink lines, and then with different contrasts, only watercolor. But I wasn't very happy with this technique, because I'm more on the drawing side. Drawings then are colored. But that's only my personal choice. Yeah, some crazy things here. What else we have here? Oh yeah, and then of course in between always drawings from real life. So this is our castle here in Wolkersdorf im Weinviertel, in Lower Austria, and this is the castle where Napoleon stayed for 3 days. Yeah. And then here also a combination. This was there was a photo here, and then the rest was then from fantasy. And then the first time, I think, when I recognized that it's good to see it in dimension, so that I have a foreground here, these trees, and then we're going back in this perspective, and then we have a background with these huge buildings. Then I've done it again here in the foreground, the trees. Also to think about details, different kind of street lamps, dome, steeples, lanterns, and so here the relation between the crown, the top of a tree, and when the lighting is coming from the left, the right-handed side, and so on. Also tested out how it looks like when you go for a double page, even when there is this big gap in between. Yeah, and then there comes the ships. Also, here also from real life, Wolkersdorf. So this is our main square with the the bar and the restaurant there. And then I thought, okay, let's put these big skyscrapers in the background. There are no skyscrapers. We are here in a village with much green and wineries and so on. But this combination I thought would be maybe interesting. Then back to black and white with these windmills. Here also the contrast between a more public house and then these towers and these cranes here. Also with some pipes. The first time I think I did some pipes here in between, so where the maybe the oil or the water is floating. Here perspective drawings. The ships. Yeah. Yeah, and then it got more and more detailed, as you see here. And then I was thinking about the concept of watercolor. So we have Vincent Newton, the Cotman watercolor. So this is more the academic quality, not the artist quality. Different paints, color, but this is the color scheme I use the most. So different browns, yellows, and reds for my cityscapes. Here's some more the rooftops. Here from real life. Here just the foreground, so didn't finish it. And as I said, always here I've been in Krakow. There's the Museum of Jan Matejko, so one of the best known Polish artists. But behind this I also did this, so just from imagination, and put these domes here in the background. Also to be focused on these values of these middle gray and here these harsh contrasts. Harsh contrasts as well here. This was a city I built up. I'm not sure, I think from fantasy, or maybe I had a photo with a little bit nearly this composition. Yeah, here with all these wires. Often I'm looking at photos and then I put it away and then I draw what I have still in mind, in memory, what I can memorize. And then these more colorful windmills in combination with these pipes. Color plants, an old mill in the north of Poland. Yeah, and then because I like this, maybe I do this again. And when you have only one color, this sepia brown tones, and did some studies, combination of smaller buildings in combination with these trees. And here this is a building in Budapest, very impressive one. And I also did this with this special ink. And here I've marked him. Yeah, then these pipes, and here in 2022 I used these smaller sketchbooks just for testing out, experimenting, and so on. You know, this train station with the train. Yep. Oh yeah, then I did bigger drawings with these foreground, and there is a wall. And this leads to drawings like this, where you see the foreground, a big wall, and behind another city in the background. Also very symbolic. Then with background, this is a little bit tricky because you have to protect the parts in the foreground, because watercolor, of course, is transparent. And so you have to protect this with a liquid mask, or you mask it with something like these tapes. And then I used also different kind of papers. Here 650 or 600 GSM by Arches. And also when you use this, the color, it's really easy on these, or more easily, to do these even, equal background, these big spaces. And here I also protected it mostly with these tapes. But I couldn't afford this very heavy but also very expensive paper. But it's of course worth it. So this was the first part about the overview. So my journey into these big cityscapes, which ended up here, which is always in my mind to do compositions. They are not so often used, like here, just in lines. So no perspective, just 4 lines, and maybe I put another line here in the background, and that's good. A good exercise for being focused on details and see what comes in my mind. I started here. Mostly I start in the left bottom corner, and when I'm drawing this, I didn't imagine that I would do this. I just, okay, let's see what comes in my mind, and this is changing while drawing. It is changing, and that's the real fun about this drawing. So very freely, very from imagination. But of course you have to practice this for some years, like you saw, but then you're really free when you can do this, what you have in your mind. Okay, so only it's up to you to say, yes, this quality or this style I want to do, and this comes really from my heart. And then you have the power to do this daily for hours and years and decades. In the next part, I will then show you how to combine elements, how to build up a concept in your head, a concept. So how could it work? Because of course I have, not now, but in 2022, so when I was really into this topic, I have a concept in my mind. And then, so very important to know how big should be the building in the foreground, that it's a little bit believable with the towers or the buildings in the background and the other things more in the foreground. And so I will show you this concept phase, the composition, so the pre-drawings. I only do straight lines so that my buildings are not angled. But that's it. The rest I do directly with ink, because when you do a pre-drawing, it would take too. It's boring because you are drawing these buildings, houses, and then you draw it again with ink. So why not start with ink, and better practice a little bit more so that you can do it very confident with ink by practicing before. Yeah, and then you have to make some decisions, and then I show you how, or what are the most important parts. So a roof, a window, a door, and how to combine elements from, let's say, reference photos in a new composition.